Welcome to the Chasing Spirituality podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. Each episode is full of heartfelt and expansive content that will really help you expand your consciousness and grow as a person. I created this podcast because I wanted to share my own personal experiences on my spiritual journey, but I also wanted to meet others and have them share what they've been through and how they've gotten to where they are today. If you haven't done so already, it would really mean a lot to me if you could rate and review the podcast. This really helps the podcast grow and reach more people, but it also allows me to get more guests on the show. Now on to today's topic. Welcome to a new episode of Chasing Spirituality. I am super excited to be bringing you with a special guest this week. We are interviewing Carrie Bennett, and we are talking all about light language. Carrie is an energy healer and a medium that uses light language, cards, and crystals to help clients. In her sessions, she channels light codes and messages from guides, higher density beings, galactic beings, angels, you name it, and she can channel it. And this will really help you evolve and heal and transform on your spiritual journey. To learn more about Carrie or work with her, you can visit her website, junipermoonholistic.com. I hope you enjoy this episode. Right, so I have Carrie Bennett with me here today, and I actually came across her when I was listening to another podcast, and I just really resonated with what she had to say. Honestly, I could feel the authenticity in the way that she spoke, and I could tell that she was really passionate about the work that she does. I also liked hearing about the transition in her journey, so I asked her to be a guest on the show. So join me in welcoming Carrie to the show.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited that you're here. I usually like to go ahead and start guests off by telling us how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so let's see. I've kind of connected to spirit my whole life, although I didn't know that's what I was doing. But to get specific about today, around when COVID happened, I worked in a laboratory. I was a microbiologist, and I was listening to the same podcast that you were talking about earlier. And then I don't know, they were talking about connecting to spirit and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I've done that. I can do that. That's what I've done my whole life. And then I started thinking, oh, well, I might be a medium or I might be psychic. This is something that's attainable for me. So I started taking classes. And then I just so happened to find light language through uh, YouTube, TikTok, things like that. And it super just resonated with me. And so then I took some classes through what turned out to be my mentor, and she just guided me through. And I don't know, it just super resonated with me, and here I am.
Yeah, I love that. I think that a lot of times we can look at our journey and we can kind of see um, throughout our lives how breadcrumbs were kind of slowly sprinkled, guiding us in certain directions, even if we didn't understand exactly where it was leading us at that time. Will you say that that's the case for you as well?
Oh yes, 100%. When I look back at all the signs that I got but didn't realize that's what they were and things like that, it was like spirit just kind of like, well, what do you have to do? Hit you over the head? So that's how it kind of seems. But yeah, they definitely lead you to where you need to be. Actually, my astrologer that I really resonate with, she always says we're exactly where we need to be. So I, it's funny how sometimes, you have to go all the way around to get to a point, or you will hit a fork in the road and you might choose the path. I never think that you choose the wrong path. I just think it might take you a little bit longer to get to where you were supposed to be. And the detour might lead you to things that you would have never experienced had you not taken the detour. But anyway, we end up where we need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I never think that we, like you said, we never go on the wrong path. There's always something that we can learn, something that we can gain from that path, even if it's not a direct link to where we're headed. So I 100% agree with that. So I know that you work a lot with light language and working with clients on using light language. We've never actually discussed light language on my podcast. So can you explain from your perspective kind of what that is for anyone who's never heard of this but is very interested or fascinated by that word, because I believe that some people hear light language and they're instantly drawn to it even if they're not sure what that is. So can you kind of give us a overview of what that looks like or what that is for you?
Absolutely. So it's just a form of channeling, in my opinion. When you said that people might be drawn to it, there was something that made me think. I hear a lot of times people comparing it to speaking tongues. A lot of people, especially here in the South, you've heard of that. In my opinion, it's not the same. Speaking in tongues is something people do, typically in a religious setting, and this it has no boundaries. Light language has no boundaries, no religious connotations, no anything like that. So basically, channeling light language is you just open up to your guides, to beings, off-planet beings. You can connect to even animals. Everybody has their own language. I believe that everything is alive that has to do with the planet. Even the planet's alive. So you can connect to Mother Earth that way. So you just open up to spirit, to these other beings, and you just allow them to speak through you and to you. And it comes out in a light language. And also, light language doesn't always have to be verbal. It can be through drawing, through writing, through dance, through a lot of times when I do channel, you'll see me doing kind of like sign language almost with my hands. There are codes that come in. So sometimes they'll have me kind of draw the codes in the air when I'm channeling. And a lot of people, like, for instance, I've had a friend who has done spirit art for a very long time, and she just happened to show me, she kind of put two and two together a little bit down the road, that she was drawing light language symbols. When we got, she had never heard of it before, and she showed me a piece of her art, and I'm like, that's what it is. You've been doing this whole time and you didn't even know it. So I hope that answered your question, but yeah, it's just basically light frequency that comes in through, and it's a conversation, and it's just a way of communication.
Okay. So I hear some people that start becoming interested in light language and they're trying to understand it a little bit better. When light language, when you work with light language, do you know what the translation of it is? Or sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. How does that part of it work? And if you don't know the translation, if you don't know what it means, how can that still help someone, or how does that still benefit us?
Yeah, so I don't always know. I look at it as being the channeler. If I am working with somebody else, especially if it's a healing session, sometimes I'm not always meant to know. I'm just the medium, that's where that word comes in. And the person will know. So if they don't know right away, like their brain, as humans, we want to understand, and our brains want to dissect everything, and we want to know. But what we have to understand is sometimes it's not meant for our ego minds to know. It's our soul that gets the message. So that's what I tell people. Sometimes I tell people, pay attention to where your body feels or imagery that you get, because I feel like we all have the clairs, we all kind of can, but some things are stronger than others. I'm more visual, but you may be more clairaudient where you hear. So I just tell people, pay attention to what you see, you feel, you smell, you hear when these are going on. And sometimes I won't get the exact meaning, but you will. And that's happened several times in healing sessions that I've done. The person gets exactly what they need, but I may not be aware of it because I'm just the channel. Now, sometimes they will show me in my mind what it is, and I will just translate. Sometimes I hear it. So if I'm meant to translate into English for them, then they'll show me. I just have to trust. It's basically just me trusting that they'll let me know what I need to know.
That definitely makes sense to me, because when I think of light language, I think of it in the form of a frequency and not in the form of an actual like intellectual language that we understand, like you said, with like the ego mind. I think of it as more of a resonance. And so your body, your soul, your spirit can receive the message even if your mind cannot conceptualize it.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And then going a little further with you saying the word soul a lot, the way if anyone ever wanted to, I'm asked a lot, how can I learn this? But it's not a learned process. It's almost it's a remembrance. It's an allowance. So everybody has their own soul language. It's still light language. It's just a more specific to you. So the way you would start, I know you didn't ask this, but it kind of just, it was a natural flow into this.
Go ahead. Absolutely, go ahead.
So if someone were to book a session with me or somebody else, an activator, I would connect you with your soul language. So that just means that this is a language that you've picked up from a past life. This may be the life that you resonated with the most. Let's give an example. Mine's Lemurian, which is an earth thing. It's not necessarily anything galactic or whatever, but mine's Lemurian. So it's just maybe maybe I lived several Lemurian lives. Maybe I just learned most of my lessons there, or maybe that's the life I'm most proud of, or I really connected to that place. So when that just means that it's basically like if you speak English, but Italian, French, Spanish, you can speak all those other languages too, but your default is English. So you kind of, I know that it's mine because if I'm kind of muttering to myself and light language comes through, that's the language that is just automatically going to come through for me. So your soul language may be Arcturian or Pleiadian or Atlantean, it can be anything. So it's just basically your kind of default soul language. Light language is your default, light language is your soul language, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I like that. So is it easy for you to pick up on these different types of language whenever you channel them or whenever you hear them? Is it easy for you to hear the differences, or is it just like a knowing, like you just know inside that this is Lemurian, or how does that part work?
Kind of both of that. When I was first figuring all this out, it was just kind of a knowing. Now I can hear the subtleties in the different dialects, and I've also went through classes where I was activated with those. So my mentor, she'll do, and she's not the only person that does this, but she'll do like, say you specifically want to be activated with Pleiadian light language. She would hold a class and she would, specifically bring through the codes for you to be activated with your Pleiadian light language. So, and then I just kind of feel through it, and I've done it so much now that I just know the differences in the sounds of the words and the cadence, and some are very staccato, some are very sensual, like the Lyran. They're very, they're very sensual sounding. And then also when I'm doing the healings, I have now that it's like almost I expect it. So certain ones come through, like when I'm going through the chakra system, certain ones will come through and help me clear, or whatever. For certain ones, like almost always the Syrians will come through for the throat, and angels will almost always come through for the heart. And then I have Orions and dragons that will come through for the lower chakras. So it's just almost like I kind of expect it now. Now, they have thrown me a few times, and certain ones come in when I wasn't expecting it. And a lot of times, sometimes I'll see the being, and like I kind of always know which of my guides are going to come through, because I know what they look like now. And then some of them just give me a feeling. Some of them, I can kind of hear them. So it's just different ones do different things. But it's kind of like, the way I explain it is, us in the US, most of us, we just speak English. So our Southern twangs are going to sound a little different than somebody from Boston,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still English. So if you become like, if you say you go to my YouTube and you hear me say, okay, I'm going to channel Lemurian, but then you go to somebody else's YouTube channel and they say, okay, I'm going to speak Lemurian, it sounds a little different. That's okay, because my Lemurian, or what comes through my mouth as Lemurian, might have a bit of a different accent or a different sound to it versus somebody over here. And that's okay. It's just what's coming through and being filtered through me. So that's pretty much it. It's just whatever kind of, it's my filter, it's coming through me. Yeah.
That definitely makes sense to me. So when I think, sometimes I've had people say, like, well, if we can't understand light language, if we don't understand what it means sometimes, or we don't know what the interpretation is, and we never know, what is the purpose of it. And to me, the way that I can kind of explain it is, if you think of like sound bowls, or like a form of sound healing, that still does something to your body. That frequency that the sound emits, even if you don't know exactly what it's doing, that vibration is still healing things, it's activating things, it's still doing the work, whether you know or not. And so for me, when I think of light language, that's kind of how I like to think of it. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of how you
100%.
think of light language? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, and also what you need today might not be what you need a month from now, you know what I mean? Or what you needed in your past. So it's kind of, I don't know where I was going with that. But I guess the healing aspect of it, like, it may just be that you needed a calm that day. So if I speak it to you, like if we had a healing session and I, maybe the goal for that week, like you had a stressful week, it's kind of like going in for a massage or something. You may just, your intention for that week is to go in and have a massage because you just had a hard week, and but then the next, like, maybe you have tired muscles the next time, and you're like, okay, can you please concentrate on my calf or something? So it's like that. It's like you're going to get what you need from it, basically. And you may not understand it, but you're going to benefit from it in some way, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you need the most. So.
Yeah. I like that. I like that interpretation and that explanation. I have a client of mine. We actually did Reiki courses together, and she started channeling with her hands, and she started doing like in Reiki. She'd never heard of light language. She had never heard of anything like that, but she was telling the teacher that sometimes when she does Reiki, her hands just start doing all of these things. And so she came to see me in a session afterwards, and I told her, I was like, you need to look at light language, because you are doing that, you are channeling light language through your hands. And she looked on YouTube, and I think she found some different light language visuals that she could see someone doing it with their hands instead of just speaking. And she was like, thank you for introducing me to that, because I felt insane. Like she felt like she couldn't control it, like she would just start doing it. And it had her kind of like embarrassed a little bit, because she is also from the South. And so she was like, I don't want to like be giving a massage or doing Reiki to someone and then start doing all this weird stuff with my hands. And I was like, it's not. I was like, your soul is remembering something and you need to figure that out.
Right. And it sounds like Reiki was just the beginning for her, and it allowed her to go to almost like another plane of existence, to where it brought through, more memories, or her body. It's almost like a muscle memory, it sounds like, of hers, to bring through the codes. And they were able to connect to her while she was tapping into that Reiki energy. That's amazing. I love that story. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just felt called to share that. And I also like to think back to like my childhood whenever I have like these kind of discussions, because I feel like it's very easy for children to access these types of things, and then over time we start to judge ourselves and restrict ourselves, and then we forget that we can do it. But if you think about, as a kid, we're most kids are always doing stuff with their hands and with their body, and they're just not thinking about it. They're just letting themselves move. And then they do the same thing when they speak. They'll start speaking in, another language. They start making funny sounds and things like that. And then as we get older, we're like, oh, you shouldn't act that way. You don't need to, you need to behave yourself. You need to sit still. And so we repress that. But I really do think this is something that we all have access to when you allow yourself to open up to it. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. I've had so many clients say, now that, I resonate with this, because I remember as a child, I just spoke these words, or I made up my own language, or I thought I was making it up. But now they realize it was more that they were remembering. And children, they just came from the other side, and their memory, or their connection, let's say, to the other side and to spirit, is fresh and new, and they haven't been tainted at all, like you said, been told quite yet, stifle it. But then the more they're here, and then they get into that, I guess it is a lower vibration than spirit, or from the other side. And then they kind of are expected to fall in line, and forget what they're told are fantasies or whatever. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. I feel like it's just a pure connection when they're children, and they just trust it because it's an innate ability for them. And then they live their lives, and then they become 30-40-year-olds who are like, wait a minute, I want to go back to that magical time. Or some people don't wait that long to go back. I did. But and then they learn to kind of they have to kind of unlearn all the stuff that was forced on them, and connect back with that inner child. And that's always beautiful to watch somebody go through that process. It can be hard, but it's, I don't know, I think it's needed. I think more people need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. me and my husband talk about our childhood and things like that all the time. And, you know, he remembers before he got glasses, he could see auras around people, and he'd be like, Mom, they have a pretty color around them, and, you know, stuff like that. And he also, he would make funny sounds and stuff like that. And then his sisters would get so annoyed with him because, you know, how siblings are, you know, they're like, just shut up, you're being so annoying. But he's so in tune with that higher vibration, that I think that if he really wanted to, he could do all kinds of neat stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I was just kind of curious if you have a favorite energy to channel or to connect to, or a few favorites that you'd like to share or talk about.
Oh yeah, Lemurian, of course, because that's my soul language. I, I have been in fairy. That's kind of my second default, I guess. Those are my two favorite because it feels natural to me, and it just feels right. And my main guide, when I really started really digging in and connecting, 3 years, no, it's more like 4 years ago, honestly. I connected with her, and the more she just let me see her as she looked human, and normal, whatever that is. And the more I evolved with learning, and then connecting with soul language and all that stuff, she kind of morphed and let me see her for who she truly was. And she's a fairy. And I guess I'm just so connected to it, and that's just what makes me really love it. And I love the language and the way it sounds. And fairies bring in happy, joy, and it's just a fun energy to connect to, especially if you're kind of feeling low. And they just raise the vibration. That's just all they do. It's just raise the vibration all around you. So that's always fun. And I have favorites it just depends on what I'm doing and what I'm connecting to. I have favorites that I bring through if I'm in the lower chakras, and they help me kind of see better what is needed and guided me through. So the Orions are always really good with that. It's not my favorite to speak. It's very deep and low and guttural, and it can kind of sound scary, but as a matter of fact, the first time I connected to my Orion guide, I was going to be in a class the next day to become attuned to the Orion dialect. And there is a few planets in the Orion constellation that you can connect to, but the one that comes through for me is from Betelgeuse. That's the name of the planet. And it's very, they breed, from what I was explained, more of a hydrogen mix. So it's hard for them to come through for us, because it sounds very deep and breathy. But I love connecting with him because he just reminds me of, like, I don't know, he's just my guy. I call him my Orion fella. He doesn't have a name, that's his name, my Orion fella. And because my light language friends always laugh at me when I say that, but he's just my guy, my go-to guy for the lower, and he helps me see some things that can be a very sensitive subject for my clients. Like, we're in the sacral chakra, so sometimes people who've had some trauma, that's our sensual, our inner child wounding, or maybe they've been abused in certain ways, and that can be very hard, and that can be very heavy. And then and then in the root, that's where we feel stable. That's where we feel taken care of. And a lot of people who have gone through a lot of trauma in their lives don't feel that. So it can be very heavy energy. And I like connecting with him because he just automatically knows what to do, and I just kind of let him kind of take over. So I do like to connect to him. It's just very deep and guttural, and it's hard for me. But anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious if you had any favorites, because I figured you would, like you said, you resonate with certain aspects and certain vibrations, so it just makes sense. So I was curious what yours are. So I have an experience that I want to share with you and get your opinion on. See what you feel from it. So there was I had been hearing about light language. I knew what it was. I had an idea of what it was, but I didn't feel specifically called to it to work with it or anything like that. And then I had a dream, and in the dream there was no lead up to it. I just poof was here in this moment. And I could tell that I was laying flat on a hard surface, and I was staring up at what looked like, if I had to compare it to anything, maybe similar to like Metatron's cube a little bit. But everything was black except for this outline of shapes, and then the shapes were in a bright green light. And it felt like I was hypnotized, like I was staring at this light right above me, and that nothing else around me was there. Nothing else mattered. It was like I was mesmerized and just focused on this light. And then it was like I could feel that I was starting to almost wake up from that. And as I was starting to wake up, I heard a voice say something about my DNA. I don't know exactly what it said about my DNA. I just heard it say something about, like, it was speaking to someone else, and it said her DNA. And then I started to panic a little bit. It's like I started to wake up in that dream. I started to wake up, and I started to panic a little bit. And then I woke up. So I felt like that was a light code that I was staring at, but I wasn't sure if you had any idea what that could have possibly been.
Absolutely. So when you were talking about that, I was hearing that it was to expand your heart chakra and to help you connect further to your own soul language and bring through your own codes. Green a lot of times will be the heart, and people have to understand when you're first connecting and you're first even getting into spirituality as a whole, even take out light language, just period. First basic thing you learn about is the chakra system, of course. And the most of the time when you start to feel like, oh, I could be psychic, whatever, you want to concentrate on that third eye and that crown. That's just automatically what people do. And they forgo all the other ones, and they don't realize how the other ones are important. But what people don't understand, like when you're starting to channel and you're starting to do all the things like what you're talking about, it really is coming through the heart space. Not, I mean, not saying the third eye and the crown aren't important. They are, because you're bringing through that energy. The way I view it is you'll have the light will come through the very top chakra, the galactic, and come down through, and it comes out the heart space.
Okay.
So that's what they were doing. I think they were expanding. It feels like they were trying to expand your heart space to help you bring through these codes. But yeah, no, I have what you were seeing was light codes. It's like sacred geometry. Is kind of what it looks like. I've seen it with like you saw it in a dream right in front of your face. I've seen it when I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. It was right in front of my face with my eyeballs. Like I saw it. Mine were orange, actually. So I was in the midst of doing inner child work. So it made so much sense. So I feel like that they were trying to help you expand. And your DNA, I have heard them do kind of like, oh, okay. I'm hearing upgrades.
Okay.
Like you were getting like upgrades to your DNA, which helps you on this spiritual journey with more connection and more understanding, and what's the word I'm looking for? Like in your ascension, I guess. And
Okay.
you're stepping it up into the next, because I feel like that's what we're doing, period. We're trying to awaken as many people as we can and help us as humanity to ascend to the next
Yeah.
density.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like you've probably had this is probably not your first experience, it's just probably your first one you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they're allowing you to remember, it's like it's because you are ascending. So this is probably not the first one. This is probably, because usually they have me end with the heart. So this is probably your last one. No, maybe not last, but like the big one, I guess I should say, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
you remember it. So yeah. Did
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
different after?
Yeah, I definitely did. I felt a lot different. I've continued to see a lot of progression
Mhm.
in my own energetic body, in my own healing for sure. And
Mhm.
everything that you said, I definitely resonate with. I definitely felt like it was something that I had experienced before. I just, like you said, I didn't remember the experience, but
Mhm.
it felt like it was repetitive. It felt like it was something that they were used to doing.
Yeah.
Like they were very familiar with me. They were very familiar with my body and with my DNA and whatever they were doing. And
Mhm.
I also felt like it was kind of it, like you said, it was like an upgrade. They were working to upgrade my energy so that I could
Mhm.
heal more and I could hold more space for myself and for others. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I was curious what your thoughts would be. So that kind of just helps again with my validation of how I was interpreting it.
Oh, that's just beautiful. That's so cool that you were allowed to keep that memory. Because that's what it is. It wasn't, the way I look at it is, it wasn't a dream, it was a memory. Um, did you happen to see anybody, just, or did you just see the symbols?
It was just the symbol that I saw. Everything else
Mhm.
was completely black around me.
Got it. Yeah. And you weren't meant to see all the other stuff. That was all you were meant to see. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. 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 That's it was definitely a neat experience. I was glad that I got to keep it. And it just it definitely did not feel like I was dreaming. Like it felt very, very real. Like I woke
Mhm.
up and was shook a little bit, like what just happened?
Yeah, because I feel like when we're asleep, our bodies, our meat suits are asleep, but our soul is, all over the place. So you were just probably asked to come to this place, or you probably just always, that's probably just maybe like your healing place that you go on the other side. Or, I mean, who knows? You may have been on a craft somewhere. I don't know. It just depends on who it was. But whatever it was healing and it helped you, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was. It was a really neat experience. So I would like for you to talk a little bit about your current offerings and what you're doing right now to help others on their spiritual journey, on their healing, and yeah, just share kind of how you work with clients and how you help them progress.
Sure. Well, one of my offerings, actually, it's called the Spiritual Guidance Session. It's maybe like a 45-minute session. I usually go over, but I think it's like $44 or something. But it's basically where in this session, you could ask as many questions as you want. It's just more a specific, tailored to you. It's not a healing session. It's just basically, let's talk, let's answer questions, let's just connect. And sometimes people want to do that because they don't have anybody else that they can ask questions of or even connect to, because all their friends aren't into this. No family members think they're crazy or whatever, and they just want to talk to somebody and have it just out in the open, and they won't reference it. You know, where do I go now? What books do you recommend? And it's just basically a conversation about what you're going through. So that is one offering. I offer that as a one session, or there's a package deal. I think it's like 6 of them over, and you could do them as, you know, often or as spread out as you want to. It's up to you. So I have that. And then I also offer tarot readings. I read intuitively, and I have that through Zoom. Most of my stuff is through Zoom on my website. I do local stuff too. If anybody out there is in North Carolina, I work at a metaphysical shop. And if you're interested in doing these things face to face, I do have a place for that. But I'm trying to remember because I just changed everything around. I have my favorite sessions are the healing sessions. I offer crystal healing, light language healing. And then there's also one that I call eclectic healing. Most people choose that one. They almost always turn into a light language healing, but I kind of let spirit guide me. Sometimes they'll have me pull a few cards to kind of get the ball rolling, and they'll come in, and sometimes it's, I don't know, grandma might come through, or your guide might come through. I try not to define it too much, that reading. I just kind of, or it's not even really reading, it's like a healing reading combo. And then I do, there's one that if you're just not sure and you kind of want to dip your toe into it, it's just a quick little, we won't meet up. I do a private YouTube video for you. It's like a 10-15 minute video. And I send you a link to it. And it's just basically channeled message from your guides in light language. And I try to give you as much English as I can in that video, but sometimes it's just basically you just need to hear it, and then you just watch as many times as you need. Let's see. And then the big one is the light language activation. So that would be for people who are very curious, like somebody like you. You're curious, you kind of already know what's going on with you, so you might would want to take the next step into connecting to your soul language. So it's a soul language activation, and that's usually consists of it's like an hour and a half. I like to allot. Sometimes it doesn't take that long, but we go through and they have me clear out energies for you. So it would be like a healing session. And then we would go into the actually speaking light language. I've had a few people who never actually speak it in front of me, and then they message me later and say, you know, I took a shower that night and it just flowed out of me. Like, so it's kind of on your own time, or with, you know, sometimes people just break right out with it. Some people never speak it. They write it. It comes out through writing. So, and then the very last thing is a cleansing. I offer a house cleansing. That could be more for local, but I can do it through Zoom as well. So those are my offerings, and yeah.
Yeah, that sounds super exciting and awesome. And if anybody is interested in learning more about light language, or working with Carrie and allowing her to activate your own soul language or anything like that, make sure that you go and you check her out. Your website, it's junipermoonholistic.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll put the links in the description of the episode so you guys can go and check her out and work with her. And it's been so great having you on the show. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of the knowledge that you have gained about light language and this beautiful modality, this beautiful form of healing. I think that it's going to definitely resonate with so many people, and I'm excited to help share this message with others.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Megan. It's been a pleasure, and I'm honored that you had me on your show, and I love talking about light language, and I love spreading what it is so people don't feel so isolated in their spiritual journeys if this happens to come through for them and they're not sure what's going on. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you love. And it would mean so much to me if you could rate, review, and subscribe so that the podcast can reach and assist more people. Until next time, I'm sending you so much love.